Thank you very much for your feedback. I would like to say hello to everyone present here today. Thank you for your participation in this online seminar. As you may know, we are going to talk about a very interesting topic connected to our key topic for this year, so democratic participation. We would like to present a game connected to democracy that will help to interact with your students and that will help to share a democratic concept with others. Hello from Croatia. It's really nice to see a lot of e-winners from around Europe. I hope that everyone can hear me. And the recording is going to be recorded. So if you are not able to take part in today's meeting, we will share the recording later on. I will be back at the end of our meeting. So if you have any questions connected to today's meeting, just please wait for the end of our today's seminar. And we also have our expert here. This is Mrs. Aleksandra Solińska-Nowak. She's going to be our today's expert, and she will introduce the game called New Shores for you. This game is for free for your students, so you can try it. You can use it during your e-twinning projects. You can share it with your partners. You can create maybe new projects concerning the game and democratic activities in your country, in your schools. I hope that you're gonna enjoy today's seminar and you will find a lot of inspiration during our meeting today. Thank you for joining and I will leave the space now for our expert, Ms. Aleksandra Solińska-Nowak. Good morning, Ms. Aleksandra. Can you turn on your microphone?
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Okay. So can I start?
Yes, I wish you enjoyable webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for introduction. And hello, everyone. I'm happy to be a part of this event today. Our topic today is democratic participation through fun, with a question mark, because it's not always obvious how can we achieve such serious goals with activities that should be fun. And by fun, I mean a specific tool, a social simulation, which is called New Shores, a game for democracy. This is the game, or as we prefer to call it, social simulation, which was developed by the Center for System Solution, that is the organization I work for, in collaboration with two other organizations from Hungary, the Rogers Foundation, and from Slovakia, Tandem NO, as part of the project Neurogame for Active Citizenship of Europe, which was funded from the European Union within the Erasmus Plus program. And I am going to tell you a little bit more about the simulation today. But first, I would like us to have a look at today's goals. There are actually three of them, the three goals which I would like to focus on. The first one is I would really like you to get to understand, get to know what social simulation is. First, the concept of the social simulation, what is it? Then we are going to focus more on a specific simulation, that is New Shores. Within this goal, I would also love to tell you how to use it, how to use it in your classrooms, in your own settings, with whom you can use it. And finally, I would like to show you additional materials, and also I would tell you how to get access to new source. It was already mentioned at the beginning of the seminar that all materials and the game is free, but it's not so obvious how to get the access. So I am going to tell you a little bit about that. And this is our short agenda for today's meeting. It is divided in 5 modules and a short session of questions from you. In module 1, we are going to address the question, what is social simulation? And why do we call it social simulation, not game, for example? In module 2, we are going to setting the stage for play. So we are going to learn a little bit about the plot, about the roles in the game. In module 3, we are going to focus more on your role as a teacher, as a person who leads a workshop. So you will get to know how to run the simulation with your learners, how to manage the technical aspects of the session, and so on. In module 4, you are going to learn how to run the debriefing. Debriefing is a summary discussion after the game session, and it is really important part of a workshop during which learners are able to draw lessons, conclusions, reflections from what they experience. And in module 5, I'm going to tell you a little bit about any additional materials that we prepared for teachers and which you can get for free. And as I told you at the end, you can freely ask me questions. Before we start, I will tell you a little bit about myself. I will try to keep it really short because it's not really interesting. My name is Aleksandra Solińska-Nowak, and I'm a project manager. And I started cooperation with the Center for System Solutions over 3 years ago. But before I joined the organization, I worked as an English teacher, so as I am also an educator and also a translator. And right now I coordinate projects which use social simulations and serious games. And I also contribute to the methodology of those tools, to the conceptions, behind social simulations. All right, let's then move to what is interesting for us. So what is social simulation? This is the first module, and what will happen here? First of all, I would love to know something about you. So this is the first part of the module. Then we will going to focus a little bit why I keep on repeating that this is not a game but social simulation. Then we try to answer the question why we use social simulations, and we learn a little bit more about the features of social simulations. So this is 5 minutes for you. I know that you don't have your microphones on, but we can use the chat. I would really love to hear from you, to know something about you. Who are you? Why did you decide to join the webinar? And what are your expectations for today? Can you please type what comes to your mind? Let's say we have 2 minutes for doing that, and I will be really happy to hear. Okay, I see that somebody Diana, it's a new concept for me. Ah, English teacher. Okay. Hi. So I see you're from a lot of countries, from Turkey, from Romania. A lot of English teachers. Italy, Greece, Croatia. Oh, there are people from Poland as well. Great. All right. So I see that most of you are teachers, and the main reason for your being here is that you are curious about this tool. Some of you say that this is completely new to you. Others says, yeah, that learning is always challenging. That's true. Interesting topic. All right, so most of you write that it's a new topic for you. That's cool. I hope I will be able to address all your questions. Thank you for letting me know more about yourself. And I think we can move on a little bit. And later on, if you still will have some questions, I will be happy to answer them at the end of the webinar. So, the great question, why? Oh, something happened. Sorry for that. But, oh. All right. Yeah. Why simulation, not game? Actually, simulations and games share many common features. And sometimes people may confuse what is game, what is simulation, what is the difference between them. There are certain differences, and before I start talking more about that, I would like you to have look at those 5 statements that you see on the screen, and write the correct letter in the comments. So what do you believe is true for simulation? Only one answer is true, actually. A. The simulation is won when all players have reached consensus. Simulations are not for entertainment, but for learning. C. There are no winners or losers in social simulations. D. You receive all necessary information before the simulation starts. And simulations mirror reality to the tiniest detail. Okay, I see some answers. B, C, B, B. Okay, I see that most of you believe the answer is B. All right. Actually, this is only partially true, and I will tell you why. The correct answer is actually C. There are no winners or losers in social simulations. And this is actually one of the major differences between games and simulations. Games are goal-oriented. You play game to win. This is a clear goal. And usually you have to complete a certain mission. For example, kill a dragon, or save a princess, or win a specific number of victory points to simply win the game. So it's clear what you have to do in a game. And actually, you cannot win or lose social simulation because social simulations are not goal-oriented. They are process-oriented. So the main objective of simulation is to learn by doing, by interacting with other people, by being engaged in collective problem solving. And there is no clear goal. You have to set this goal for yourself. And this is why only you may have this feeling of winning or losing, but the simulation does not impose this on you. And because there are no losers or winners, also answer A is not correct, because you cannot win. You cannot win simulation. Of course, social simulations are collaborative. They are focused on cooperation, and this is also something which makes them different from games, because games are usually competitive. They are focused on rivalry. Simulations are not, but still, if players in simulation reach a consensus, it's great. But if they don't, it's still okay, because they may still learn something out of it. So it's not so really important to reach this consensus. It's good, but it's not necessary. When it comes to B, a lot of you decided that this is the correct answer, that simulations are not for entertainment, but for learning. And I said, yes, partially it is true, but it is true that you learn in a simulation. You learn by doing, you learn by solving a problem, by sharing information. That's true, but it doesn't mean that simulations are not fun. They are fun, and actually emotions help us learning, and simulations are very often fun in order also to help learning. So yeah, there is learning, but this learning through fun. It may be playful learning, so B is not correct as well. When it comes to D, I think nobody voted for that. Oh no, some people did. Some people did vote for D. But this is not true. You don't receive all necessary information before the simulation starts. This is also something which makes simulations different from games, because usually when you start a game, you get in a clear instruction what are your goals, what would be your moves, what happen if you do something. In simulations, we don't necessarily give this information to players, because the simulation, as the name suggests, simulate something. In our case, we want the simulation to simulate real problems, real conflicts, and some part of reality, some part of our real world. And well, when we are born, we don't really get a set of clear information about what will happen or what will be the consequences of our actions. We learn it as we develop, as we grow older, we learn it. And the same we try to transfer into simulation. So in simulation, you learn and you get the information from interaction with the environment, from interaction with other players. So you have to learn by doing. make a mistake, maybe learn something out from this mistake, and get feedback and learn something from this feedback. So information appears just in time, when you need it, not earlier. And lastly, answer E, simulations mirror reality to the tiniest detail. Of course, it's not true. Why? Because I think any game, any film, any book can't do it. We, of course, try to represent central ideas, central problems that are important for us. For example, when we want learners to learn about climate change or sustainable development, we focus on those topics, we put them into simulation, but we cannot do it one-to-one. It's always simplified, it's always just an abstract element, some elements of realities which help learners to understand it, but we cannot mirror it to the tiniest detail. So actually, only answer C is correct. In simulations, there are no winners or losers. I hope this part helped you understand more what simulation is. And let's move on. Why do we use social simulations? There are a lot of educational methods that are already quite effective. For example, in making learners active, in making learners understand. That's true. But social simulations offer many advantages that are not always so visible in other tools. And I will focus on four main reasons that social simulations are useful in learning. And some of them may sound a little bit complicated, like this one, procedural rhetoric, but they are in fact very simple. So what about this procedural rhetoric? It may be a new concept to you, but it simply means learning through process. What does it mean to learn through process? It means to learn from doing something, being engaged with something. For example, in a game or in a social simulation, you decide on a move, you observe the consequences of that move, and then check if it matches your goals. If yes, that's fine, but if not, then you change a little bit your strategy and try again. So using the nature of play, using the elements of environment in the game or in the simulation, you learn the rules that govern it. So you discover new knowledge through process, through doing something. Social simulations are also very engaging. They require players to operate the environment, to interact with it, to do something, to click on something, to exchange information with other players. So you are always occupied. You don't only passively listen to a teacher, but you can be a part of the learning environment. You can actually co-create this learning environment because you observe that your actions have an impact on this environment. So this is one way of enhancing learning and understanding. Another aspect of social simulations which are helpful in enhancing learning and understanding is this iterative nature, iteration. What does it mean? It means that you can play games and simulations as many times as you want. You may play different game, but you may also play the same game. And even if you play the same game, the outcome of this session may be completely different. So it helps us learning through our mistakes and our successes. Because, for example, if you didn't manage to achieve your goals in one session, then you can stop playing for today and tomorrow start again with a new strategy. And then you can try different strategies, different approaches in quite safe environment, because mistakes in games, mistakes in simulations, they don't only affect, fortunately, only affect the environment of the game, and you are still safe. So you learn from doing something again and again. And slightly different, of course, because we cannot expect a different outcome if we don't change something about our actions. And construction. Construction means building your own knowledge, constructing your own knowledge from experience, from finding connections between what you did in the game and what was the outcome, finding connections between your old knowledge and new one. So you are actively constructing your knowledge, and this is what social simulations and game help us achieve. All right. So just to summarize our knowledge of social simulations, I would like you to look at those 5 categories that are here, and we will define social simulations using them. So when it comes to sensory exposure, so the extent to which you are able to explore the environment using your senses and using your thinking, social simulations are somewhere between multi-sensory and experiential. So they don't only depend on our thinking, like, for example, when we read or analyze diagrams. Then we are completely focused on our cognitive and mental skills. But when we are in game, when we are engaged in game, a lot of senses are active. We see, we think, we touch, we may, so you are actively engaged in exploring the environment, and you use a lot of senses. When it comes to agency, I've already mentioned that that one of the main one of the main aspects of games and simulations is this being active, this engagement of learner. So you not only take the knowledge passively in from the teacher, but you actively make decisions, do something, and actually, unlike in games where your moves are limited by a lot of rules, in social simulations you are more free to decide on your goals, to change them. So it is also in a way exploratory. So you may check different approaches, different strategies. What about sociality? Social simulations are, of course, focused on collective activity. So it's not individual. You are not reading your book at home in your room, but it's a social activity. So it's always played by many people at the same time, so that you have this ability to learn from each other for peer-to-peer learning. I also mentioned that social simulations, to some extent, mimic or mirror reality, or at least real problems, such as global challenges that we face. But of course, this realism has to be limited. It's not completely fantasy, so it's not an alternative reality that we can experience, for example, in fantasy books or films or games where you have dragons, magic, and witches, and no. But it's not only it's not also reality to the tiniest detail. It has to be simplified, but it has to be focused on those aspects of reality that we want learners to focus on. So it's a kind of stylized, simplified situation that helps learner understand it. And finally, when it comes to time, social simulations are used in order to allow players, our learners, to have a peek, to have a virtual look into the future. So we design them in a way that will help them understand that if we keep on doing some things, for example, overexploit resources, stick to unsustainable habits, we will somehow impact our future. And this is why players in social simulations make decisions, see the consequences. They may even move forward a couple of years to see, to learn, to get prepared for what future may bring. So this is why we use social simulations. And I would like to show you some examples of social simulations that we created for democratic engagement. So I've already mentioned a lot of times that simulations are engaging, that they are based on participation, they are based on engagement, and how can we use this aspect? We can use this engaging aspect to help players, to immerse players in challenges of, for example, common resources management and sustainable development, like, for example, in the New Shores simulation that we are going to talk about in a while. But we also have, for example, simulations which are focused on building community resilience in the face of natural catastrophes, such as, for example, flood, like in the simulation Lords of the Valley. We may also engage players in challenges of advancing energy transition. So this aspect of actively deciding, actively collaborating, actively negotiating certain things may be used not only just for fun, just for making our lessons more attractive, but also for somehow smuggling some ideas of how to be active in shaping our future, in shaping our reality. So this is the main mission of games and simulations used in education, in use in learning, use in triggering social change. I talk a lot about what social simulation is, and now I would like us to move specifically to New Shores simulation, which I want you to know better. And how will we do it? So I will give you a short intro about the narration in the game, about the roles in the game, in the simulation. You will learn basic information about the New Shores world also by watching a really short video. And I will also tell you more about what does it look like from the technical side. So what New Shores simulation requires, what kind of facilitation and what kind of equipment. So let's move to the intro. This is the information that players receive upon entering the game. So they have to imagine that they land on a mysterious island. The island is covered with a beautiful forest full of green trees and tasty berries. And soon you discover also that the ground is rich with coal. You and other inhabitants of New Shores will try to organize your life in a way that suits you and other members of the community. To do so, you can use the island's natural resources, such as wood, coal, and berries. They will bring you money needed for private and public investments. With money, you can raise your standard of living by investing, for example, in private library or swimming pool with jacuzzi. But you may also contribute to public buildings, which add to the community statistics. in other words, they raise the level of education, health, and culture. And it's up to you to decide on your priorities. But you have to always remember that your actions entail consequences, and excessive use of the island resources may increase the possibility of climate disasters. So this is the main intro to the game, the main plot. And now, as I promised, a short movie. I will remind you at this point that you are always welcome to note down any questions that appear, because I know that I'm talking a lot and you don't really have a chance to formulate your questions at the moment. But please note them down, and I will address them at the end. So let's learn more about the New Shores world.
I will share the presentation, the video with participants, okay? Just give me 1 minute.
Okay, so I'll stop it.
Because we cannot see until I share my screen. 1 moment, please.
Wait a second.
You can also click on the link and see the video for yourself, but I will just share the screen with you in a minute.
Okay.
This is the
Are you ready?
It's your house. You will recognize it by the green key. These are the other players' houses. This session was created for different players. These are the buildings. Just the country and the host. This is the land. And this is the actions. Everything that you want to do when you start your application. This is our fish.
Yeah, the sound is not so perfect. Can we do something about it?
I'm sorry, but I have the maximum voice here right now. Yes, of course, you can check it for yourself later on. I will share the presentation, the link in a chat, but you cannot. Let's maybe finish the video, or you want to continue?
Yeah, okay. Actually, it was.
I cannot do anything with the sound.
Yeah. Okay. Then that's
so we can watch it without the sound, and later on you can just talk during the video also. So maybe you will be heard more.
Okay, we can do that. So can we watch it from the beginning, or?
Okay, I will turn off the. I will mute the video, and you can tell the description for yourself. Okay.
Okay, sure. Okay, so generally this is the island that you are going to live on, and the houses that you see belong to the players. The one with a green key belongs to you. Except for the private buildings, there are also public buildings: school, museum, and hospital. This is the name of your players, and this is the record of the actions that you can do in the game. The game is played in real time, which means that sometimes you are going to compete with other players for the same resources, for the same plot. So it all changes with what you do. And what can you do? You can build private buildings, such as, for example, gaming room, TV room. And for that, you get points of standard of living. So you rise your standard of living. But you can also engage in using the resources. You can cut trees, you can exploit coal. It's quite profitable, but of course, as you see, it affects the natural environment, and it may also raise the CO2 concentration. And you may also collaborate with other players and invest in public buildings in order to develop the level of education, healthcare, or cultural life on island. So you've got a lot of options, and you are not really obliged to do any specific things. You have to decide on your own what are your goals, whether you prefer to develop the public infrastructure, or you are willing to protect the environment, to plant trees, or maybe you prefer to get rich and invest in your private development and in your private facilities. So it's always your choice, and this is why we cannot really prognose the results. The outcomes of the game are always dependent on your actions. I'm really sorry that you were not able to listen to the voice and to watch the whole movie, because that would make it easier for you to get the idea. But we will send you the presentation, and you can also click the link here. And I think we will use this way later on, because later on I would like to show you a little bit longer movie. So this is what we are going to do. But I also hope that you got this sense of what is the objective of the game and what are your options as a player. And I would like you to I want to give you some more basic info, maybe more technical info about the New Shores. We already mentioned that this is multiplayer. So the optimal number of players would be about 10. And perfectly, the ideal situation is that each of the players has his or her own tablet or laptop computer. If not, they may also sit in pairs, but generally that would be great if each of them had their own mobile device. I also mentioned that this is the internet game, but this face-to-face interaction is very important. So what we usually do at our workshops with New Shores is to gather learners, gather students in one room. We arrange them in a circle. So although they are looking at their tablets, they also are able to communicate with players who sit next to them. And it is really important because it is a collaborative game, and at certain point, if you don't communicate with other players, it is really really hard to get this shared vision, this shared understanding of the problem, and to continue with the game. And the most, maybe not the most, but one of the important things to know for you as educators, teachers, is that this is a moderated game. What does it mean? It means simply that the game requires one person, most preferably an adult person, that manages the technical aspect of game, so pauses the rounds and initiates the rounds, prolongs the rounds, but also facilitates the dialogue with the youth. So this is your role in the game as a teacher. So let's say something more about your role as a moderator. First of all, a very important thing to remember, that you're a guru, not guide. What does it mean? It means that you are not there to guide the action, to tell learners exactly what they have to do. No, they have to find for themselves what they are going to do. They are free actually to decide what they want to do in the simulation, and your role should be quite neutral. You are there to answer questions, to solve disputes, any conflicts, but generally you are not there, you are not in your regular teacher, regular role as a teacher who tells, now you are going to do this, now you are going to do that. No. You are also going to manage the technical side of the session. So you are the one who is going to prepare the equipment, you are the one who are going to ensure that there is internet access in the room, and also you are the one who is going to manage the game's panel. So pausing the game, shortening or prolonging rounds, refreshing the panel, and so on. And finally, a very important role, facilitation. So you are the one who has to facilitate the dialogue during the session, but also after the session. What does it mean? You have some catchy phrases here, which may not be clear to you, and I will tell you something about them. Magic circle, it simply means introducing players to the simulation world. So you should tell your players that upon joining the game, upon joining the simulation, they are suspending the rules that govern real world, and they are entering into this magic circle. They are entering, they are assuming roles, and from now on they have to, for a little while, forget about anything else and to be totally in simulation. In order to ensure a safe learning environment, you should also introduce some fair play rules, some code of rules, and I would always say that the best way of doing that is doing it jointly with learners. So jointly decide. You don't have to establish many rules. 3-5 rules would be enough. For example, please respect other players' feelings don't use offensive language, don't scream, try to stick to the fair play rules. So just basic rules for making the simulation goes. You're also the one who are going to make announcements, short announcement about, for example, that you are going to stop the round because you want to say something, or because you want other player to say something. And it's really important for players that they listen to you, because it will affect their understanding. You are also the one who is going to provide safety during the simulation. What does it mean? It means that you probably know that games, simulations, they often may evoke an array of emotions, and some of them may be negative because a player may come into conflict with another one. So your role is to observe that and be sure that if anything worrying appears, you can stop the game for a while and address the problem. And finally, of course, you are the one who is going to lead the debriefing session, so the summary discussion. And I will tell you more about this summary discussion later on. I see that some questions are already appearing in the chat. Please remember the questions, and I'm not able to answer them right now, but I will do it later. So please remember. Here you've got some useful tips for moderating. I think I don't want to read them aloud to you. You can do it yourself. And probably most of them would be obvious for you, as you are teachers and you know how to facilitate a dialogue with the youth. But just a quick look at it, and you can also always read it afterwards, because I see that we don't have much time left. So if you allow, I will skip it and you can read it later for yourself. So we talked a lot about what simulation is. We talked a little bit about the New Shores world. We watched a video without the voice, and we were also discussing your role as a moderator. So now it's high time that you learn something about how to manage the game session, how to access the moderator panel, and how to create game session. Before that, in a while I will give you a link to a video, and this time please watch it on your screens. We will also share the screen with you, but as you know, the voice won't be so perfect, so please open it on your computers.
Yes, I will.
And before that, I will just give you a short outline how the New Shores workshop usually looks like. So if it's quite long, so if you are limited by the time as a teacher, it's always advisable, for example, to give players some introduction maybe before the session. So for example, when you plan when you plan your class on Thursday, you may introduce them to the what social simulation is and what New Shores is a couple days earlier in advance to save time on during the lesson, and combine and play the game, for example, when you've got joint classes. The game session usually lasts about 1 hour. It may be a bit shorter if you decide to shorten the runs, so you can actually match it to your time constraints. And debriefing, this summary discussion, usually always also lasts about 60 minutes. If you don't have so much time, you can also, it's not a preferable way, but you may also lead the debriefing session after, for example, a break. So I will paste the link. At least I will try
to share it. I will try to share the screen with you again. I'm sorry that that the sound is good as it's supposed to be, but so I cannot do it.
I paste the link, and please open it on your computers. And please remember to watch it from the beginning, because for some reason it opens from the middle. Thank you. All right. So, were you able to watch the video, all of you? You can type yes or no. Yes, great. Yeah. Okay, I'm happy that most of you had opportunity to watch it, because I will refer to it quite a lot in the next section, running the debriefing. So now then, when you already know more or less how to create, how to introduce learners to the game, how to manage the technical aspects. Now is the time to lead the session afterwards. I've already mentioned the debriefing, and it may seem not so important. It's just a discussion, but actually it's essential that the debriefing is delivered, because it's a really important part of the whole workshop. Sometimes it may happen during the game that players are not successful in this, meaning that they ruin the island. And so the session is really important in order to turn their seemingly failure into lesson, so that they go home not with the feeling that they failed, but with the feeling that they learned from a mistake, that it's not a waste of time. We do commit mistakes, but we can draw a lesson from that, and this is why the briefing session should be held. There are many ways in which this summary discussion may be held. Here you've got a short overview of how we usually do it. It's divided into 5 main parts. The first one is about feelings. There were a lot of emotions during the session. There could have been conflicts among players. They could be frustrated, they could be happy. Whatever happened during the session, we have to address it. We have to allow players to steam off this tension. The next part is focusing on facts. We know that we cannot easily say who won, who lost, but we can somehow refer to the results, and we can try to interpret them and to understand what is the meaning of those results for the group and for individual players. You may also ask about individual motivations of players and deepen the reflection by focusing on consequences, which leads to the last part, discussion about how the experience can be related to the real world. I prepared some main questions, main aspects that you can touch upon during each part of the debriefing. And also you can find here how much time, the estimate time it takes. So when it comes to the emotions, first briefly ask them how do they feel, how was the game, did they like it, what surprised them, and if you feel that it is okay for them, you can even offer them some moving activities, jumping, running, whatever helps players shaking off the tension from their bodies. And it's quite important, especially in case of younger students. It may be not so important for elder one, for adults, but in case of young people, this jumping or shaking of the tension may really be important. When you focus on facts, it's always a good idea to start from the big picture. So before you go into details, before you go into analyzing the individual moves and individual motivations, start from big picture. For example, you may display the picture of the island from the moment the game was stopped or finished, and ask what's there, what has been built, what's not there, what is the apparent damage done, how many houses are left, and so on. And if you watched the video, you saw that there is this option at the end of the game that you can compare the picture of an island before the game session and after it. So this is also a good moment to display it and to simply ask what happened and who did it and why, and what do you think was the reason behind it. And after that, you may try to move on and focus on individual actions and motivations. Here you've got some tips on what you can focus on. Remember that players could have a lot of goals in the session, and they could even change during the session. So please ask them, did you actively set goals for your role? If so, what were they? Why? Were you able to reach your goals? Because they could have a number of goals, and it's always good to know. You may ask about their challenges. So in what parts it was difficult for them to reach their goal, what were the barriers, and what were the particular situations that were challenging. It's always a good idea also to focus on these interlinkages between different factors in the game. You notice that each move of a player could really change the situation of the island. For example, if they were extracting a lot of coal, then the CO2 concentration could grow. If they were cutting a lot of trees, it affected the forest condition, which in turn affected the fact which affected the natural disasters, whether they appeared or not. So each action could have some impact on other players or on other aspects of the game. You may ask about it. You may ask whether they were able to observe those relationships and ask them if they were satisfied with the outcomes of their decisions. Certainly some of them would be, some of them wouldn't. That's for sure. And you can also ask about relationships with other roles. Were they able to cooperate? How did they feel as a part of a community? Did they build a community? Were they able to build a shared strategy? So focus on also on this social aspect. And finally, reflect on consequences. So help them draw lessons from what happened, even if they, for example, cut all the trees, or even if they caused a lot of natural disasters. Help them draw lessons from it. You may, for example, ask them what would happen to the island if they were continue playing like that, for example, over exploiting resources, and what would they do differently if they were given the chance to play the game, the simulation, once again. And this reflection on the consequences, it leads us to the last section of the debriefing, which is focused on bridging the experience with the real world. So transferring this knowledge gained through the game into the world outside. So you may help them find these correlations. For example, what actions would you take within your own world, knowing that they had specific outcomes in the game? Would you do the same in the real world? Why is it so difficult in the real world to work together based on what happened in the game? So try to make them think not only about what happened in the game, but how is it related to our social life? And of course, probably your questions wouldn't cover all the reflections and all what happened in their heads. So you may also ask them freely if they have any own reflections or questions, and summarize that. So this is the debriefing session, and I see that we really have not so much time. And I would like you to ask some questions. So I will just quickly tell you. We will skip this slide because it's actually connected to the previous one, but you can read it later at home. But I mentioned that you are able to download all the materials, and you can get access to the game for free. I didn't lie, it's true. You already know from the video tutorial how to get the access to the game, and this is all you have to do. You only need access to the internet, and you have to load the platform that was mentioned in the movie. But you can also get additional materials, that is the methodology guide, which introduces you to the game-based learning methodology. You can get this video tutorial that you've already watched, and you can also download the workshop scenario for teachers, which will lead you step by step how to prepare the session, how to lead the debriefing, and how to conduct additional activities after the session. And I will just show you how to get to those materials. It's very simple. The only thing that you have to do is to join the new source class, which we created on the Edmodo platform. So you set an account on Edmodo. It's really easy. You just type your email address. First, of course, go to the website, type your email address, and provide your personal data, your name, your school, and after some questions that Edmodo will ask about your interests, you will have to enter the code. And you don't have to remember all of that. The instruction how to get to this virtual classroom and how to get access to those materials is here. You can download the instruction how to log to the class and use the code on this website here, newsource.crs.org.pl. So this is, yeah, exactly, it's already there. Great. So this is what you do to get all the materials. And we have 2 minutes for your questions, so I'm open. If you want to ask something, please type it in the chat.
Yes, if you want to ask some questions, please do type them in the chat. I can also unmute you.
Thank you.
Oh, there are a lot of questions here. Would you recommend this simulation for it winning projects to be students?
Yeah, a really interesting question. Yes, when it comes, there is a question about online sessions for people from different countries. Yes, we did it. It was slightly different from game sessions led in a classroom because players had to use chat, but it was still quite successful. And question number 2, can students assume a role that is incompatible with their real beliefs and ideas? Of course, and it's a really interesting experiment, and a lot can be learned and a lot of empathy can be triggered this way. So I think it's a perfect idea to feel how to be in somebody else's shoes. So yeah, exactly. How do learners react to the simulation? Differently. Most of them are very positive, although at the beginning they don't have this clear understanding that this is not the game. So at the beginning they often expect clear goal and they expect that they can win. And it's always very, at the beginning it's very difficult to make them forget about forget about regular games and focus on this new experience. But when they finally get the idea after 1, or 2 rounds, it gets really interesting, and they are usually very active and mostly very positive about it. All right. So thank you very much.
There's one more question. Sorry, the starting of the scenario is always.
I also hope that you are going to use the materials. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the very interesting seminar. There's one more question from Norma, Lisa. I'm not sure if you have seen it. The starting of the scenario is always the same in the game. Is it always the same? I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, now I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, there is a question from Norma. The starting of the scenario is always the same in the game. Is the beginning always the same?
Yes, the beginning is yeah. Generally, the only thing which may be different is the number of houses, private houses, because the number of private houses depend on the number of players, and of course the arrangement of elements on the island may be different depending on the on how many people play, because the more people play, the bigger the island. But generally, yeah, the beginning is always the same. The concentration of CO2 is always the same, and it just changes with the decisions of the players. And after the first decisions, after the first actions, the scenario depends on the decisions of the players.
And last question, what's the age of the students? What should be the age of the students?
Students 11 and 12 is a perfect age. The simulation is targeted at young people from 11 till, let's say, 30 years old, although of course adults can play it as well, because we played with adults as well, and they were quite quite engaged. But it's not really for very young kids, age 5, 6. It's still too serious for them. But 11 and 12 years old students, it's a perfect age.
I think that this was the last question. I would like to say thank you very much to Ms. Aleksandra for a very interesting seminar. And I think it's right now up to you how you're going to use the game. As we said before, it's for free. Maybe there's going to be a very interesting eTwinning project connected to the game. There is a very big international family, eTwinning family here, so I think that we can change it into action and create a very interesting project connected to this game, New Shores game. As we said before, it teaches democracy, it teaches about environment, and I think it's going to be really interesting to implement it into eTwinning projects. As I said before, I'm here back again just to tell you that this session was, of course, will be certified. The certificates will be sent by the Central Support Services to your emails, and we are going to share the recording with you on our platform on YouTube. It's called eTwinning Polska. We will send the link also here to the page on eTwinning Live, the page of the event. You can find the PDF file right now over there in the file section. The presentation is over there already, and we're going to share also in the files section and in the forum section the link to the recording. I hope that is going to be tomorrow maybe, or in the next week for sure. Thank you very much once again for participating in our seminar. And the last thing over here, I would like to invite Polish teachers to another seminar connected to democracy. It's going to be held next month on the 11th of October. We are going to talk about the space in our schools, how it reflects the relation between teachers, students, and parents. I'm sorry for that it's going to be in Polish, but our expert cannot do this in English. So I really invite Polish teachers to take part in that. I think you're going to enjoy it. Thank you very much, and see you soon online. Thank you for taking part in this seminar. I will finish it now. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.